So I took the week off and set some things down, which you need to do sometimes, put some things down, gave them over to God, and let God handle it. And the Lord, spent some time with the Lord, and the Lord began to stir some things in me that I need to take care of, that I need to remember, that I need to learn, that as we're going forward in this thing, and some things that I think I got over into, or some things that maybe I allowed through ignorance. I'm going to preach some things because I need to hear them. And I don't have anything written down. They're just things that the Lord has been speaking to me, kind of showing me. And so I'm just going to share them with you. And if they make sense, awesome. Great. I hope they make sense because I need them to make sense to me. So in Job, and the thing that we're going to look at, the thing that I need to look at, the thing that I want to hear, the thing that I need to get down in me, the thing that I got to grab a hold of, the thing that has to change, going forward and doing things for God, is accusation or being accused in your life. An accusation is just a claim that you did something wrong. It's not a truth. It's a claim, is what an accusation or accusing. If you look right now in our political system, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, don't care if you're liberal, conservative. For the last 2.5 years, if you're following any of the things that are happening, we have been trying to find out if an accusation against the president is true. And I don't care, again, I don't care if you're a liberal, I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care if you're conservative or Republican or an independent, I don't care. We have been researching, searching, investigating an accusation for 2.5 years. Now, we're at the end of it, and there's this battle over the truth of the accusation. But here's the thing about the accusation for the last 2.5 years, it has stopped and brought a halt to what the president has wanted to do. It has slowed things down. It has gotten in the way. It has had to be dealt with. There's been wasted time, wasted money, and now the effects of this accusation in the environment and the culture has bred chaos. And again, we have no truth. This is an accusation. And this is interesting about accusation. Accusation will not breed truth or give truth. Accusation will bring, handled incorrectly, will bring chaos. Handled incorrectly. So in Job chapter 1, and I've preached about this a little bit, let's go to verse 6. In the beginning of the story of Job, there's this meeting between God and the sons of God, the angels of God. And verse 6 says they came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan, the adversary, and the accuser also came among them. And I looked up the word Satan, Satan in Hebrew, literally means accuser. That's what he is. That's what he does. That's what he has. Accusation. So he shows up, and you have to notice this too. You would think remember when I first saw this, what was Satan doing there with God? How come you wouldn't think that he gets to be around a meeting? But he was. How did that happen? How does he get to be around things that God's doing? How does he get to be around? But he was around there. And it says, verse 7 said, and the Lord said to Satan, from where did you come? And then Satan answered and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it. So he travels. He moves about. Peter said, I think it was Peter that said, the devil is a roaring lion, roams around seeking whom he may devour. Now there's an interesting thing about seeking. If Satan was capable of devouring everyone at free will, anytime he wanted, he would not have to seek. Lions, if you watch those little videos, they look for the weak and the sickly. Wolves will look for the weak and the sickly. Or, very small, if you watch, they have to seek out that which they can devour. They don't just walk up to you, man of God, woman of God, that's awesome, and what have you, doing what God said, and devour you. They have to find you in a place. He finds you somewhere. He finds you vulnerable. He finds you weak. He finds you in the wrong place. He finds you in the wrong position. And then he accuses. He brings false claim. Go, Jack, you were waving your hand. Jackie's got.
I was just saying, or separated. They find the ones who are separated.
He finds the ones that are separated. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It's separated out from the herd.
Separated out. And do you know that an accusation can separate you? An accusation of many kinds can separate you out from the rest of the herd. And there's a couple of things that can happen. An accusation can come to your pride and tell you that you're different and special and separate you out from among. And then an accusation can come against those wounds and those hurts and remind you of the things that you've made mistakes and separate you out that way, because then you don't feel like you belong. Either way, it's pride. When you think you're not a part of because you did something or you have something, it makes you think you're special, whether it's good or bad, whether it's sin or not sin, whether it's wound or not wound. When you think that you are not part of that, it's pride. And an accusation can bring pride. That's interesting. Thank you, Lord. So then he said, and so verse 8 says, and the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, and blameless and upright man, and one who reverently fears God and abstains from shuns evil? I'm reading in the Amplified because it is wrong. So, and I've said this before about this particular situation, it's like God is a fight promoter. It's interesting. It's interesting that Satan wasn't even thinking of Job here. Or he would have said already. But he wasn't thinking about Job. Because Job wasn't weak, sissy, la-la, Nancy boy. And he was serving God. Now he may have had issues, but he was still serving God, and he was in a good position. He was in the right place. He was fearing God, right? So he wasn't even thinking about Job. God had to say, hey, what about Job? Why don't you give him a shot? Now the cool thing about this that the Lord quickly showed me when I said, Lord, are you a fight promoter? Why are you doing this? The Lord showed me because the thing about this scene is God views Job in a totally different way than Job views Job. The reason God had no problem saying, how about Job, is because God knew Job. God knew Job would come through this. God had a totally different view of Job than Job did. And that's one reason why God allowed him to go through this, to show Job who he was and to show who God was in his life. God doesn't have any problem putting you up against Satan. Think about that. Doesn't have any problem. When you're serving him, when you're after him, when you're following the Lord, when you are pursuing the Lord, God sees you in Jesus. God sees you covered. God sees you strong. We don't see us that way. Lots of people struggle with their identity and who they are because they see themselves still as the person that's walking to the cross instead of the person that's carrying the cross. We struggle with that. Our identity is not in the cross, and so we don't see ourselves how God sees us. So God doesn't have a problem putting you up against Satan. And some people might disagree with me on that, but for me, that's my theory. That's my belief. That God sees me totally different than I see me. And I try to see me the way God sees me and make ready for battle. So God says to him, here's Job. And Satan, now remember, through this whole thing that I'm talking about, and the Lord's putting this together as we're going, think of Satan through the rest of this morning when we're preaching. Call him the accuser. So everything that he's doing is accusation. Everything that's happening now is accusing. It's accusation against you, against me. It's not true. It's a claim. So he says, and Satan said, and answered the Lord, does Job reverently fear God for nothing? See, even Satan knew. Have you not put a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have conferred prosperity and happiness upon him, in the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But put forth your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to his face. And the Lord said to the adversary and the accuser, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only upon the man himself do not put forth your hand from the presence of the Lord. So he sees in verse 9, it says, Satan answered the Lord, does not Job reverently fear you for nothing? In other words, he was in a position, he worshiped God, he feared God, reverently feared God in that good way, that reverence of fear that God is awesome. So Satan knew that. He could see it. That's why he didn't want to mess with him in the first place. So God says, okay, you go touch his stuff. Go touch his stuff, but you can't touch him. So Satan goes out and begins to attack him and touch his things. And then go to chapter 2. Go to verse 1, and it says, and again, there was a day when the sons of God, the angels, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan, the adversary, and the accuser, came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, the accuser, where did you come from? And Satan, the adversary, and the accuser answered the Lord, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it. So he's got this thing going against Job, but he's still looking for more. He's got this thing going with Job, and he's attacked Job, but obviously nothing's happened yet. Obviously, Job hasn't renounced God, because you see that Satan went on about his business and is looking for more folks. So this is a process. Scholars say that this all happened about in a 9-month period. That everything that happened to Job, there's a lot of them believe that it happened in a 9-month period. He lost his family, lost his home, lost his wealth, and you're about to see that he gets these boils in about a 9-month period. When I was a kid, it seemed like it was like a 20-year thing. It seemed like it lasted for years and years and years. And I got a little older, and I started hearing from smart people that they believe it was about a 9-month period that this happened. Thank God, I feel bad for him. I wouldn't have been able to do this for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. I wouldn't have been able to take this. But wait, we did. Didn't we? Kind of, sort of. Kind of, sort of. And the Lord said to Satan, verse 3, have you considered my servant Job? And there is none like him on the earth, blameless and upright man, one who reverently fears God and abstains from and shuns evil because it's wrong. I love that. I tell my kids here at work when I do it because it's the right thing to do. Don't do it for me. Don't do it because it's the right thing to do. And here he said, basically he's saying that he does right because it's the right thing to do. Because the Amplified says he abstains from and shuns evil because it's wrong. Well, we need to get back. I think that's what we meant as parents when we were raising our kids. Because I said so. That's why. I tell you to go do something, that's because I said so. We need to get back to some of that, I think, because, I think, Michael, we may have said, because it's wrong. You're not doing it. Yeah, she's shaking her head, yeah. Period. That's all you need to know. It's wrong. So then he said, as though you moved, then he said, and still he holds fast his integrity, although you moved me against him to destroy him without cause. Then Satan answered the Lord, skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has will he give for his life. But put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse and renounce you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he's in your hand, only spare his life. So now he has permission to do something to him physically. So, I read all that. The main point that I wanted to show in that is that Satan is the accuser. He comes and he makes accusations. Because you see, he said twice to God, yeah, he's great and he's awesome, but if you do this, he'll curse your name. That's an accusation. He's accusing. Everything that God said to him, all he had to say back was an accusation. He had no truth. There was nothing he could say to God that was true. You think about that? And that's what I'm trying to show. That's why I'm using this. When he came before him, and he said, well, yeah, if he has all this stuff, if you take that hedge away from him, he'll turn his back on you. Didn't do it, did he? That's because it was an accusation. It wasn't truth. Then he came back a second time and he said, well, skin for skin. You take that stuff away from him, let me put some boils on him, he'll quit following you. No, that's an accusation. It wasn't true. It wasn't true because he didn't do it. And we see at the end of the story, God explained some things to him. Some things in Job's life got fixed. And he went on and he got everything plus back. There was no truth in this story of Job and what Satan brought to him as an accuser. There was no truth at all. Okay? So, go over to Psalm 109. So we know that, and I'm just trying to establish, I'm not accusing, I think I just showed fact. There's no accusation in what I just said. I just showed that Satan only accuses and has an accusation. There is no truth. There is no truth. So, that he can use against you. That there was no truth for him to use against Job. Think about that. There was no truth in what he said about Job. Twice he told God, let me do something to him, and he'll curse your name. And he didn't do it. All accusation. So, verse 1 on Psalm 109. I'll just read it. Verse 1 says, do not keep silent, O God, of my praise, for the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful have opened against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. They have also surrounded me with words of hatred, and have fought against me without cause. Verse 4, in return for my love, they are my accusers. But I give myself to prayer, thus they have rewarded me evil for good and hatred for my love. And then verse 6 says, set a wicked man over him, and let an accuser stand at his right hand. So now, not only do I know that Satan is the accuser, and all that he has is to make accusation, but now I know where he does it from. You have to understand the right side. The right side is very symbolic. The right side means a place of power and authority. Whenever you look in the Old Testament or you look in the Bible, wherever somebody's standing at the right hand, that means a place of authority, power. Jesus sits at the right hand of God because that's a place of authority, power. Proverbs and Psalms talks about the right arm of God, the salvation of God on the right arm. That's a place of strength and power. Here we see that Satan is given a place of power and authority in people's lives because he stands next to them and through all the demons of hell accuses. By them, he stands at the right hand of someone and he uses them. This is why we have to be careful. He will literally use people and stand at their right side and accuse you through them. And I'm thinking of specific things, and remember, I'm trying to preach to me. I need to hear this. And I have thousands of scenarios going through my head right now that are all making sense. I can see people standing in front of me accusing, well, you're not doing anything about it. You're not doing enough about that guy. And you're not doing anything over here. And what about this person? And I can literally see the devil standing next to them on their right side, accusing me through them. Because what happens is, when an accusation comes and it stops the process of everything. Because now you're on hold. Because someone has made an accusation against you. So now we have to stop and examine it. That's what we think. That's what we do. Look at what the government's doing right now. Everything had to stop so they could examine whether or not there was collusion or
Obstruction.
So the thing that we have to realize is that the enemy will come against us, and he stands at the right side, the right place of authority in people's lives, and literally will use people to speak accusation against you to get you to stop, to get you to slow down, to get you to change, to get you to go back, to get you to admit something that isn't true, which has been probably my biggest, I think that's one of my biggest. The accusation comes of the past. Accusation comes, and if it's not buried in the cross, you tend to treat it as a truth. And so you stop. I want to read, let me see. And we know that in the New Testament, Satan is called the accuser of the brethren. I believe it's the New Testament. I'm sorry, I can't think of the top of my nugget, the exact place. But we know that or I can see that, accusation comes, and for me, it always makes me stop. Now I have to deal with it. Accusation. And it's always something from the past, or it's always something for me that questions my identity, who I am in the Lord. And it always, for me, it questions whether it's something I should be ashamed of. And those things stop me dead in my tracks. And I begin to listen to accusation as if it was truth. You don't have to go here, but Zechariah chapter 3, one of the prophets, and I believe this was during the time of when Ezra and Nehemiah were building the wall and restoring the wall and the temple. One of the priests had a vision in chapter 3 and verse 1, and it said, "Then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to oppose him." And the Lord said to Satan, "The Lord rebuke you, Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is this not a brand plucked from the fire?" Talking about somebody else, the brand that's plucked. But this shows us, we've got to get a hold of this. This is not hyperbole. This is not a J.R.R. Tolkien story. This is not a C.S. Lewis story, which we love those guys. This is not a fantasy. We see 2 times in the Old Testament where Satan literally is described standing next to someone to accuse you. People are used to bring accusation and they don't even know it. The unsaved don't even know it. We have to be so careful who we're listening to, who we allow to speak to us. We have to be so careful. Because, and here's your dipstick. Anything that someone speaks to you that is not the redemptive work of the cross, you cannot listen. You cannot. They are accusing. Because again, it's an accusation, it's a claim. This is truth. Truth always has to come up against the claim of accusation, and we must learn to understand what an accusation is. It's a claim. It doesn't mean stop. It doesn't mean don't keep going. It means rebuke it and go on with truth, because that's what he did. God's given Zechariah this vision of truth. And they're building something that God told them to do, and Satan is right there to try to bring accusation and stop the whole thing. This is not just a colorful painting to give you, a great story. This is truth. This is where Satan stands, at the right hand of someone. And then, I don't know about you guys, but Jackie, I'll let you go here just a second and say, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's like a jackhammer in the right side of my ear daily of accusation. It's like a jackhammer all day long of not only things that I'm trying to do at work, but trying to get this ministry off the ground. Not only trying to get this ministry off the ground, but trying to hear God and where he wants to go within the perfect will of God. Trying to keep ourselves in a place, in a position of being worthy, staying under the blood, staying at the cross, keeping sin out of our lives, not going backwards, going forwards in faith. God, was that you? Jackhammer, 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 jackhammer. Question after question, question after question, accusation after accusation. So, I need to hear this. I'm preaching this right now because we need to understand. I need to understand the reality of the accuser. And remember, I said this. He doesn't sleep. Smith Wigglesworth said one time that he's standing at the street in New York City to cross the street, and you stop to pay attention to the cars to make sure you don't get run over. And from the time you walk across the street, from that time, and you quit praying, and you quit for that just moment of time to walk through the sidewalk, for that amount of time that you stop because you're paying attention, praying against the enemy, he's that much farther ahead of you. Because he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. But we do. The accusations never stop. But Psalms 121 or 2 says, God is my help, and he never sleeps. I think it's, and there's another psalm I'm thinking of, God never sleeps. God never stops coming for us. God never stops coming after us. He never sleeps. So Satan can go on all he wants. God does the same. Jack, you want to?
This is for you too. Oh my gosh.
Jackie's going to preach.
Just for a second.
No, go ahead.
Just for a second.
There's Jackie.
But when you were talking about this is not hyperbole, for anybody that doesn't understand what hyperbole means that it's more exaggerated beyond anything that could possibly be true. That's what hyperbole means. When you were talking about where it says the accuser of the brethren, Revelation 12. And if you start at 7, and I'm sorry I didn't bring my glasses today, but
try mine.
It says, and war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not prevail, nor was the place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night.
Oh, wow.
Day and night, has been cast down, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to death.
Amen.
So he accuses us day and night. He has a place in heaven. Satan has a place in heaven where he accuses us day and night. He never stops. Never stops. But the good news is that he does get cast down. He does get cast down forever. And it goes on to tell what happens to him. He has no opportunity for redemption the way we do. But he accuses us day and night. And he will until Christ comes back. He will accuse us day and night. But Jesus intercedes for us constantly. Satan's in front of God accusing us. Jesus is on the right hand of God interceding for us. And we win. There you
Wow. Daily. Day
and night.
That's pretty good preaching, Sister Jackie. Ooh, doggy. Jackie. Come in. I like that. That helps me. Daily. Day and night accuses.
He never stops.
He never stops. So, and then, now, to piggyback on this, to throw this in here, I want to throw something in here, and I'm working really hard on, and will really work hard as we go on with this and in life and preaching and what have you. And I think it's a minister, a man of God, a woman of God. I think it's a pastor, a teacher, evangelist, a prophet, apostle. I think it's their duty when they're preaching, when they're teaching, to say, to verify some things and say, and this just works for me, to say, I'm going to tell you something, and it's my theory and it's my belief. And what I mean by that is, there are some whole bunch of things that I will teach and preach that are just fact, true, and I will preach and teach them the cross of Jesus Christ. I'm not going to stop and say, it's my theory. It's what I think. The cross doesn't matter what I think. It's all fact, it's all true. It is truth. There is no, I need to qualify. I used to say this back home. I used to say, here's my disclaimer. Here's the fine print. I'm going to tell you something, but here's the fine print. There is no fine print to that cross. It's pretty bold and pretty plain. It will cost you your life, but you will gain His. Pick it up and get going. So, but I want to say something right now, and I'm going to qualify it. Here's my disclaimer. This is a theory. This is what I believe. This is what I'm chewing on, and I'm just throwing it out there for your consumption. You chew on it. You don't like it, spit it out. But I was reading last night in Luke, and I think you might see some more of this in the other Gospels. But I think two places, I'm sure there's more. Jesus was in the synagogue. Well, let me do this. Stay right there. Don't turn to it. Matthew, Mark, Luke. Still do that like when I was a kid. Matthew, Mark. Oh, I was in Mark. Sorry, not Luke. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Chapter 1, verse 23. Jesus is, don't go there, but Jesus is like preaching. He went to the desert already. He's been baptized. And in verse 21 says, then they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath, he entered the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. Verse 23, now there was a man in the synagogue who with an unclean spirit, and he cried out. Okay? Verse 39, chapter 1. And he was preaching in the synagogues throughout all Galilee and casting out demons. So, in verse 23, he's in the synagogue teaching, and there's this guy with a demon. And in verse 39, he's in a synagogue casting out demons. Just a theory. The church, and this is where I might get into trouble. People might say, who are you to talk about the church? I am not about to claim that the body of Christ is full of the devil. But the church is in a place where we have allowed people to come in and be used of the enemy and scar and destroy Christians and baby Christians all over the place. I know. I've stood in front of them and been accused. Jackie and I have worked in several places where people in the church accused, brought accusation, who were full of the devil. Paul even said that people were sent to those churches to spy out their liberty. Well, the last place we worked at, there'd be 200 people on a Friday night, preaching be a revival center, and the pastor, the church person that was running the service would walk through the back, and there would be demonic